Hey guys, welcome back today. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, I would love it if you would subscribe. And if you're returning, I appreciate your support. And I also hope that you are subscribed as well. I do like to talk about current events, politics, anything that's going on in the world that I think just needs another opinion, because that's what we need, is just more opinions. Please help me to grow this channel to hopefully reach more people that value logic, reason, and sanity. And also head on over to Rumble and find me there under Outspoken Samantha in the event that YouTube decides I have violated their community standards and chooses to kick me off their platform forever. That being said, let's get into today's topic. So I apologize if we are interrupted by any background noise today, because I just heard a truck go by that was beeping. There's been a lot of traffic background noise. My cat is in the corner playing with the toys, so we're just gonna kind of work through the chaos today. But we're going to talk a little bit about Women's History Month, specifically how today's society is celebrating women's history, and that seems to be with the promotion of biological men. And ESPN has decided to join in this clown world by promoting a special on Lia Thomas, who was born a male, who up until about 5 minutes ago, went by Will Thomas, decided he couldn't hack it in male swimming and chose to change his name and grow out his hair, and felt that that qualified him as a biological female, and has been competing against women for the last 3 years or so. So they promoted this special on Lia Thomas, and it's just really fun to watch. So let's have a look at that.
In 2022, swimmer Lia Thomas became the first transgender athlete to win an NCAA Division I championship by winning the 500 freestyle. The Texas native competed for 3 seasons on the men's swim team at the University of Pennsylvania. She began her transition after her sophomore season, and after a gap year due to the pandemic that forced the Ivy League to cancel all sports. Thomas made her debut as a member of the women's team in December 2021.
Being trans is not a choice. I didn't have any other choice, because not transitioning was not leading me anywhere.
She competed amidst criticism from the swimming community, competitors, and teammates. She said she hopes her persistence serves a larger purpose.
People will say, oh, she just transitioned, so she would have an advantage, so she could win. I transitioned to be happy.
So this is where we're at in celebrating women in the world. Why would we not be celebrating biological males after all the leaps and bounds that we have made in women's rights and women's recognition and women's opportunities and achievements? Why would we not be celebrating the next natural step in that progression, which is to have men dress up as women and pretend that biology doesn't exist, and therefore pretending pretty much that everything that women have accomplished has been in vain, because all it really took was men to change their names and grow out their hair and just save all of the struggle and the protests and the movements and the legislation to get us to where we are. All it really took, in every single thing that women have accomplished over the last 100, 200 years, was just for men to take on our role and achieve those things for us. So in celebration of this historical moment in women's history, let's look at all of the things that Lia/Will has accomplished. Lia broke down the privacy barriers in women's bathrooms, stripped himself naked, and stood in the middle of a group of women who were also undressing, and ignored their shocked faces while they tried to cover themselves. Then, when the women expressed their feelings of feeling violated and not safe to the school authorities, Lia was able to gain priority over their concerns, and his desire to share private spaces with them took precedence over their request to maintain the previous standards of having separate changing rooms for men and women. Lia/Will came in 462nd when competing against other males in these swimming events, but instead of working harder or perhaps moving on to another sport that his 6'4" testosterone-filled muscular frame could be better at, he decided that the best thing to do was to grow his hair out, change his name, and then start competing against women who were half his size, with far less muscle mass, less arm span, less strength, and less lung capacity. This person has had no problem taking trophies away from female athletes or taking space up on awards podiums that would have otherwise been occupied by other young women who had actually worked for that achievement, and he has spent the last 2 to 3 years pretending that he is the victim, not the women who have been targeted, harassed, and threatened for not wanting their athletic opportunities taken away from them by this mentally ill man, but he's the victim here. And then the icing on the cake comes from the fact that he has no intention of ever acknowledging that perhaps what he's doing is wrong, and he still does not hesitate to accept awards and recognition from gigantic sports organizations like ESPN, and he's all too happy again to take the spotlight for himself and away from women who are actually deserving of attention during Women's History Month. Because we're just supposed to believe that this person is just trying to be their true selves and just wants to be accepted as a woman. Never mind the fact that it was recently exposed that Thomas has autogynephilic tendencies, meaning he is sexually motivated by the gratification of presenting himself as a woman and being perceived in society as such, as demonstrated by several disturbing social media posts in which he commented on, liked, or reacted to images of himself being depicted as a woman with an erection. I think that we're all probably a little bit, if not a lot, disturbed by this, because just when we think that women cannot be demeaned or belittled anymore in today's society, today when we should have more rights and respect than we've ever had in the past, we see crap like this. Public platforms who know full well what this person is all about, who know all about their fetishistic tendencies, that this person is parading around as a woman for gratification for themselves, someone who is clearly mentally ill. Yet society thinks so little of women and womanhood that this is who they choose to celebrate during Women's History Month. Like, is this what women making history means in 2023? Would you really put this someone up next to Susan B. Anthony and Eleanor Roosevelt and Marie Curie? Like, this is insane, and we have got to stop putting up with it. Thankfully, Riley Gaines has kept up the fight, and she's standing up against this nonsense. In response to ESPN promoting this special on Lia Thomas, Riley Gaines tweeted, "Lia Thomas is not a brave, courageous woman who earned a national title. He is an arrogant cheat who stole a national title from a hard-working, deserving woman. The NCAA is responsible. If I was a woman working at ESPN, I would walk out, 'You're spineless, ESPN, hashtag boycott ESPN.'" And then she's also done a few interviews in which she is talking about this very issue.
In your tweet, you suggested that women working at ESPN should walk out. Have you heard anything from ESPN?
I have not, which is of no surprise to me. I will say I admire Sage Steele, who works at ESPN. Of course, she is a real female. I admire her so much because she has taken a public stance on this. Of course, working around sports, we know the advantages that men have in comparison to women when we're comparing things that require athleticism or sheer strength. And Sage has been the only woman working at ESPN to publicly acknowledge that, and so I admire her for her courageousness and her strength.
As we go forward here, various solutions have been proposed. How about a separate category for trans athletes compete amongst themselves? Female athletes, male athletes, trans athletes. What do you say to that?
You know, I think in an ideal world, in terms of finances and in terms of the amount of people actually playing in this division and people watching this, I think this is a perfect solution. A lot of people will, of course, look at this as something that's segregatory and we're isolating the trans community. But from my perspective, we're embracing the trans community. 5 years ago, if you would have suggested a trans category, people would have laughed in your face. But now we're acknowledging these people do, in fact, exist and giving them a space to compete fairly, safely, which is what we all want. That's what I want, and that's what the women That's what we deserve.
And it's important to note the points that Riley is making here, because we are not talking about excluding someone or excluding somebody's existence from society. If trans people want to be recognized in society, then there is plenty of room to make their own categories, as we've had to make separate categories for men and women in the name of fairness. And just like we've had to make categories for things like age and weight and skill level, because you're not going to put a high school athlete who is just starting out on the swim team against someone who's competing in the Olympics, because that would eliminate the opportunity for somebody who is just starting out. There are plenty of areas where we do have separation based on fairness, because there is certain realities that we have to acknowledge and that we can't ignore. And if this is really about inclusion, why would you not work harder to create inclusivity in the men's team for someone like Lia, who can express themselves however they want to, but still compete in the area that is fair for everyone, that aligns with their biological makeup, with their skill level, and how they are made. The lie is that we are trying to erase people who have gender dysphoria, even though I am not completely convinced that Lia has gender dysphoria. I think Lia Thomas has a deep narcissism paired with sick, like I said, fetishistic fantasies of autogynephilia that he can now play out in public and be praised for and be protected under this label of inclusivity, and also be protected from criticism, because if we criticize this person, then we are called transphobic. But this is not about erasing people who actually do have gender dysphoria. This is about not erasing biology and not erasing reality so that people who are mentally ill can't abuse the system and take away rights, privacy, and safety from others. So if we're going to be celebrating women's history, I'm going to celebrate people like Riley Gaines and Bethany Hamilton, who are standing up against this nonsense and trying to preserve the rights, the spaces, the opportunity, and the privacy of women for our future generations, for girls that are coming up into these spaces, who are growing up in this world, to know that they are going to be protected, that people are speaking up for them, and that we did not let this stuff completely erase the opportunities that should be in place for them. And we want to preserve the language that women are able to use. We want to preserve the words like mother and women, and not have these be trigger words to make an entire group of people feel like they're being excluded and discriminated against and targeted in some way. What's really interesting is that you can use the words like, trans woman, or you can acknowledge a biological male as a woman, but if you use the words like mother and woman, things that, describe the most beautiful things that make us who we are, suddenly those are the things that are triggering, and those are the things that are being labeled as hate speech. So I would love to know your thoughts on this. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, like this video, share it with others. I hope that you will subscribe, help me to grow this channel, hit the notification bell so you can be notified every time I post a video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.